Hello, seventh graders. Today is Tuesday on a beautiful day in the afternoon. I'm doing a slideshow for you guys on the feudal system, which you'll be watching tomorrow, which is Wednesday, May 13th. So if you want to follow along, that'll be great because you'll have a feudal system graphic organizer to fill out for Friday. So here we go, the feudal system. As you can see, the feudal system had to do with a lot of area during this time. Usually the king owned most of the land, if not all the land. There were some nobles, as well as some high church officials that also owned land during this time. But the majority of the people that owned land were kings and lords. And as you can see, they had it broken down into different sections. You can see a pasture. You can see where the serfs lived. You can see where the peasants lived. You can see where the workshop was, as well as where the manor house was. There's a church and many, many fields for planting. The next slide is kings ruled, like I said, most of the chunks of land. They needed this land, and they needed help controlling this land and farming the land. So they had to have peasants and serfs plant their fields, run their fields, pick their fields, and in return, the kings and lords would protect the peasants and serfs from other people that were trying to attack them. It also gave large pieces of land to the lords as well underneath them. In return, the lords would provide kings with soldiers, taxes, and political support to back them up. So I am going to ask you for an assignment at the end here is to pick what you would want to be and what it would require you to do for a day if you were that person, for instance, the king. He had the complete control. He owned all the land and decided who he would lease the land to. That's what he did on a regular basis. Lords, knights, and vassals are three different kinds of groups. They governed the land given to them by the king, was ready to provide troops and taxes for the king when the time comes. So if the king said, "We are going to war," he would ask the knights as well as the vassals to support him and go and fight in the name of the king. The peasants would work the land and the farm and farm it for them. In exchange, like I said before, they would get protection from the king, which is actually the people below the king, which would be the knights as well as the vassals. They maintained the manor by doing all kinds of jobs that the king required. Farmers, bakers, tax collectors, etc. They were free to leave anytime they wanted, the peasants. On the other hand, the serfs were not that lucky. Serfs performed all the duties peasants did not, except they were bound to the manor. That means that they were not allowed to ever leave the manor. They were always had to stay inside the manor area. They were not slaves, but they could not be sold, just could not leave the manor. Freemen, they owned shops and had various jobs throughout the manor, but was not bound to the manor in any way. They were in the same category as the vassals. When we're going to be talking about the social class system, vassals and freemen are considered in the same category, which would be the fourth from the top. Now, what I want you to do for me for homework after watching this short slideshow is to pick a king, a lord or a noble, a knight, a freeman or a vassal, or a peasant or a serf, and just tell me, do a little research and tell me what would be required for them to do per day in a life during the Middle Ages. I'm not looking for a whole bunch, but I am looking for about 2 or 3 sentences that what each part of the class system did. Not all of them. You just have to pick one of those that I just went through. Hopefully that is pretty easy. And you'll have Wednesday, Thursday and Friday to do this, but there's going to be another part of filling out a graphic organizer on the feudal system, which I'll be going over right now. I'm going to go over it. So all of us are going to have to fill out a chart that looks like this. It's a feudal system class system from top to bottom. And you're going to have to fill it out. I'm just going to briefly go through it. At the very top is the king. And that is the top, the highest. He is the king, of course. Then the second one from the top is the lords and nobles. The third spot would be the knights. The fourth spot would be the freemen and the vassals. And the last spot, the bottom spot of the triangle of the class system, would be peasants and serfs together on the bottom line. So that is the class system. And part of that is you're going to have to pick one of those and tell me what they do per day in the class discussion for me. I also want to give a little background knowledge on some of the other feudal system things that happened during this time. The central government was not very strong, and that is why the Pope, Charlemagne, had to step in and try to make the central government stronger, and he did that. The parcel of land granted to a vassal by his lord was called a fief, F-I-E-F. In the center of the lord's fief was where the manor was located. I like that word fief. I think that's kind of neat. So it's a parcel of land granted to a vassal by his lord. What is a manor? A manor is like a small village. It also has a church, the Lord's house on it, or a castle, a lot of farmland to farm, and that's where the peasants and serfs lived. In the lowest spot in society sat the peasants and serfs who worked on the land itself. They had almost no rights. They had tiny pieces of property to live in. Mostly they were like huts for homes. A lot of times the animals even lived with them during the winter months just to keep the people warm. They would lay next to them for body heat. So those are just some of the things about the feudal system that I wanted to cover today in this wee video, and hopefully will help you with the things that we're going to be doing for the next 3 to 4 days. So once again, you have to watch the wee video. You will have to answer or reflect on one of the class systems and what they do per day back during the Middle Ages. You might have to do a little research on the internet for me for that. And write 2 or 3 sentences on what happened per day. And then fill out the graphic organizer of the feudal system from top to bottom. And that will be due by Friday, boys and girls. So try to get all that done by Friday, starting tomorrow, which is Wednesday, May 13th. If you have any questions, please email me. I'll be glad to help you if you have any questions. And then next week, we're going to be trying to do or make a castle and draw it and label it, or a manor. And I'm going to give you different kinds of choices to go by, possibly building one, drawing one, and hopefully giving you some suggestions that you can do that you will like to do next week. Other than that, that's all I have for today. Hopefully y'all check in to listen to this. I miss you guys a lot. Take care, be safe, and go Middle Ages.